All right, internet. Goat here. How's it going? All right, I hope. Okay, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm starting a new series. Well, I hope will be a new series called Goat Reviews Stuff. And what I'm reviewing at the moment is mostly music. And the idea is to look at hidden gems. So stuff you might not have heard, stuff that might have passed you by, most stuff that came out in the 90s or early noughties or thereabouts. Most of this is going to be on CD because that's what we used to use back in the day. Now, you might be able to see over there, I've got quite a collection of CDs and DVDs, but I've got lots more than what you can see there. So I collected quite... Oh dear, that was noisy. So I collected quite a lot of CDs during the 90s and noughties before they more or less got discontinued. So it's really hard to find new CDs anymore. But there's lots of good stuff out there, and lots of that stuff is on streaming. So I'm going to uncover some stuff for you, hopefully, that you might not know. But today is a bit different. So to kick this channel, this series off, rather, I'm reviewing a new album. But the caveat is this: it's a new album by a band who have not released an album in 28 years. 28 years. That's a long time, right? So back in 1996, this little puppy right here came out. Okay. It's amazing, but I'm not here to talk about that today. But that you need to find and you need to listen to because it's amazing, right? This band, Lodestar, were formed as an offshoot of the band Censor, which were a UK rap rock rave band that came around sort of in the late 80s. And they had some reasonable success, charted and all that stuff in the UK, toured in America as well. I can't remember who they toured with, but they supported some fairly big acts. So they're pretty popular. They're still going and they're still quite popular. I never really personally got into Censor that much. I heard a couple of their singles. Eject seemed to stick in my mind. And there's a few other ones. I forget their names now. But I never owned their albums. So it didn't appeal to me as much of a way for me to go and buy their stuff. But three of the members from Censor, so Heath and Mal Syed, vocals, John Morgan, drums, Alan Haggerty, or Lord Hagos, bass on this album, and Jules Hodgson on guitar. He wasn't in Censor, I don't believe. And I think Haggis was the sound engineer of Censor rather than being in the band. But John and Heathen were both in the band. Heathen was the rapper, really. And this album is not really rap rock. It's pretty heavy. It's got some massive riffs in it, and it's also got some quirky alt metal rock stuff. It's quite idiosyncratic, quite their own thing, which I'll come back to later because it does come into play in the new album. Anyway, this album came out in 1996. If I look at the price tag on there, I think you can just see that that was £14.99 in 1996. So that was how much we paid for that stuff, and we kept it and we cherished it. Actually, I've got 2 copies of this on CD because I love it so much. Anyway, I'm here to talk about the new album, Zonen. Okay, so they got back together this year. I was completely surprised, astonished, extremely happy, because this is one of my favourite albums of all time. And considering that most people don't know who they are, it's a crying shame, really, because it is really amazing. I was hoping that the new album, once I heard they were coming out with a new one, would be just even nearly as good as that. I would have been well happy. Well, I'm proud to very pleased to say this is better, maybe. I've lived with this for a few weeks, maybe a month now, because I went to see him in London on their comeback gig, and I bought this there, and this, obviously. I mean, it's amazing. So, to talk about this album, I need to put a little bit of context here. So Heathen, the singer, after Lodestar folded, so in '97 they folded, he went on, was involved in a number of projects, and I've kind of followed his output over the years. Some of it's harder to get than others. So he was in a band called Entronaut. I think 1 or 2 of their songs are on YouTube, if you can find them. They're really great as well. And then he was in a band called Fiend in France, because I think Heatham lives in Paris now. And they put out 3 albums, Fiend, and they're amazing. So Onerous, Agla, and CRS, absolutely amazing albums. Onerous and Agla, you can hear them on Bandcamp, and they're on YouTube. CRS, you can't. It used to be on Bandcamp, it got removed. I don't know why, after I bought it, which was a bit of a shame, but I've got the CD anyway. So that journey, musical journey, really, is sort of, it's gone from, you know, censor, rap rock, and then Lodestar, that first album, was a lot more singing. There was a bit of rappy delivery on a couple of songs, but overall, totally different style. And musically was different as well. Fiend is doomy and psychedelic and, you know, sludgy. And then Lodestar, the new album, is, it seems more like a natural evolution on. I mean, obviously, Heatham is the vocalist and lyricist in this band. And I believe that most of the music on this album actually was originated by Alan Haggis, or Lord Haggis, who is now the guitar player. So he was the bass player on the first album. He's the guitar player and the bass player on most of this as well. And I mean, after listening to this, I think you can hear, if you go back to the first album, you can hear that clearly he was very instrumental in writing a lot of that stuff, music, on the first album, because there is some similarity and some evolution. But this worships at the altar of Iomi, in my opinion. Well, I mean, that might be a little bit reductive, but it's got some real Sabbathy grooves on here. Not just Sabbath. There's a less well-known band, Scandinavian band called Sag, and there's definitely some moments on here that remind me of them. There's some Jesus Lizardy stuff. There's some grungy kind of feel on here. But I could say overall, the album, the vibe is heavy and it's dynamic. It's melodic and it's got some punky moments in there as well. Yeah, and some quirky tracks that harken back to their first album a little bit, I would say. So they released a few singles off of this one. The first single, Bring Me the Head, really did remind me of the first album. It's kind of spiky, angular, riffy, and melodic vocals. It's quite a short song, and then it basically evolves into this coda at the end where it goes off on a different tangent for a very short amount of time, but it's epic. It sounds amazing. That is not so representative of the rest of the album, I would say, as much as the second single, Surrender to the Tide, is, which is a riff fest. I mean, massive riffage, just sounds amazing. And also heads toward a coda. So this band, I mean, they're kings of the coda, I think. So where the song changes at the end and becomes something new. Obviously, lots of bands have done this in the past. Sabbath really pioneered it, you know, songs like Iron Man, where that first riff comes back at the end but becomes something else. Lodestar have got this going on in a few of their songs on this album. So Surrender to the Tide, High Sorrow, just a high point of the album for me. Absolutely incredible. The riff in that just makes the hair stand up on my arms. It's quite amazing. And Bring Me the Head, and there are other songs on the album as well. Maybe they don't turn into a coda, but they've got a chunk in them, which is very separate from the rest of the song. So they've got these changes in, which I always really enjoy. The vocals are melodic, but they range from a sultry, you know, sensual, even sexy kind of vocal to a full-on raw. I mean, you know, Heatham has got some real oomph in his voice, but massive dynamic range. And it's really nice to hear. And for me personally, I've always been a fan of the marriage of really heavy music, but beautiful vocals. And the first album had it, and this album's got it even more. There are moments on this album it's really, you know, it's like ecstasy. It's really, really great for me anyway. So the lyrical ideas, again, following Heatham's career across his various projects that he's been involved in, there's introspection, there's fear, there's an idea of cults and cosmology, and you know, there's some real events peppered in there as well. But it's deliberately obscure, so the lyrics aren't on the nose. They're open to interpretation, which I really enjoy that. But they've got catchy sound bites. You know, he's got a knack for this. So like in High Sorrow, you know, you take the oath as lovers do. You've got Be Ready, where the little sound bite is however you die, it's okay. Bring Me the Head is Move Softly on the Water Softly. The Stranger, oh, that's a great track as well. The Stranger, If I am one, you are the other. If I am known, you are the stranger. And then, you know, Fire's Loaded. You'll know it when you hear it. It's quite something. So to, you know, briefly go through the tracks, Surrender to the Tide. It's just monstrous. And it goes to a really cool place at the end. Bring Me the Head is short and sharp and spiky and punky. And it goes into this coda, which is really cool. And there's a little lyrical note in there, a little phrase where, I mean, I don't know if the band are followers of Donald D. Hoffman, Professor Donald D. Hoffman, and his theory of conscious agents and stuff. But there's a little line in there, you got no skin in the game. And that's something that Donald Hoffman has said before. And it just reminded me of that. Maybe nothing to do with it, but, you know. Be Ready is aggressive and fast and powerful, and then evolves into this Celtic kind of vibey thing, kind of culty, kind of sounds like it should be from a Ben Wheatley movie, if there's any Ben Wheatley fans out there. Ben Wheatley's amazing. Yeah, and I can only imagine maybe it's some of the influence from Alan Haggerty's writing. He's Scottish. It's got that kind of vibe. It sounds like it's got a brain or some kind of, you know, Celtic drum in there or something, but really cool. Hyper Ritual, a nice dynamic song, clean parts, massive heavy riffs coming in there, and it ebbs and flows. That one, it's a really cool song. Flame was the third single, kind of grungy and groovy and a bit sexy, a bit naughty, cool song. 1983, that's kind of an acoustic interlude that builds up to, you know, something heavy. The Stranger, well, no, I should say The Stanger. I thought it was a typo at first, but apparently no, it's not. And it makes sense, really, because the song talks about the stranger, but also talks about being followed like a distant star. So The Stanger, I think, you know, it does fit in with that lyrical idea. High Sorrow, I mean, the Stanger and High Sorrow, massive high points on the album, although it's hard to pick them out as high points because the album is so strong front to back. There's no weak points on the album, but personally, hitting a chord with me, the Stanger and High Sorrow are just amazing. The Real World is a really cool track as well, more aggressive, fast paced. You know, this is, and some of the lyrical ideas in there as well. Get aligned, you know, it's like this is the real life, not an exercise. There's a clip an audio clip at the beginning, which sounds like it's, you know, well, it's like an hijacked aircraft call. So I don't know exactly where that comes from, but it's impactful, let's say that. Sigils Burning, track 10, is another rocker, you know, full on riffage, quite up tempo. And then The Harp finishes things off, which is a cover of a song by the sensational Alex Harvey Band. I wasn't familiar with it, and I've not listened to the original since, but I've listened to their version quite a few times, and it's a great way to finish off the album because it settles right down. It's acoustic. It's, again, got this folky element to it. It's got this, you know, could be off a Ben Wheatley soundtrack again. Yeah, a really cool way to close out the album. And I can say, I mean, I would give this a solid 10 out of 10. You know, there aren't many albums that come along for me that don't have a weak point in them. And this is one of them. And sadly, this isn't going to be listened to by anywhere near as many people that it deserves to be listened to. So that's why I'm doing this video. You need to check this out if you like heavy music. Yeah, and then you need to check that out if you like heavy music. This has got more quirks to it. They're coming off of Sensor. This is 96, all right? This feels more mature. Or, I mean, no, mature is the wrong word, because there's some stuff on here, which, I mean, the closing track on this album, Iliac Crest, is phenomenal. And, you know, it gives me the same vibes as the stuff off this album. So they're both incredible. This new album is out tomorrow, Friday, the 17th of May, on all streaming platforms. You need to listen to it. Oh yes, and before I forget, must shout out to Lodestar's new bassist, Charlie Beddoes. Didn't play on every track on the album. It looks like on The Real World and Bring Me the Head, Charlie played bass on those. I assume because probably a lot of the stuff, because Alan Haggerty is a producer and he produced the album, and he plays bass as well as guitar, so I think it was mostly recorded, and then they filled that slot, the vacant bass player slot, and did a couple of extra tracks. When I saw them live, Charlie Beddoes' bass tone was crushing, sounded amazing, great stage presence, fits the band perfectly. Nice as well to have you know, a bit of gender diversity these days. But yeah, absolutely cracking album. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe. I can't believe I just said that. And if you have any ideas, because I've got quite a lot of albums on my list to cover in this series, but if you have any suggestions you'd like me to cover, preferably more obscure, but if you want me to do a mainstream thing or whatever, stick your comments in the comment section and I will look at them and I'll review it. Cool. Well, that's it from me. So go out, go and listen to that, and bang your head. Bye, internet.